if you had one word to describe Dr. Christopher, what would it be? Caring? Sensitive? Compassionate? Okay.
Loving.
Loving. How about what he did? Herbalist? Naturopath?
Pioneer.
Pioneer? Yeah, but one word. I can think of one word, but I don't know if you can come up with that.
The greatest.
Oh boy, let's see. There's a gift. The greatest. Now, when you say that about me, you get two. I was going through his library after he died, and I came across a whole series of books called Vitology. Have any of you ever heard of Vitology? Yeah, it's not around anymore. And I wouldn't describe Dr. Christopher as an herbalist. I wouldn't describe him as a naturopath. I wouldn't describe him as even a healer or an iridologist or any of those things that he was. I think the one word that describes Dr. Christopher is a vitalist. He had this whole library of Vitology books, and I do believe that what he was a vitalist. Now, that didn't originate with Dr. Christopher. These are old books, and it's been going for a long time. And I think to understand the Dr. Christopher program, it would be probably advisable to understand vitology and to understand where this came from. Centuries ago, there was a man by the name of Hippocrates. You familiar with Hippocrates? Father of medicine? Not. Not of the medicine we know today. You have to realize that there's two branches of medicine on the earth today, basically. You can divide them into two categories. And then there's a lot of subdivisions too, but there's basically two categories of medicine today. And Hippocrates believed in the vitalism of the body. He said that there was an inherent quality within everyone to self-correct, to find its own path and to do what it needed to do to survive. And so he believed that what was important was to make the environment pure, and then this vitalistic body would function well. Now along came Democritus. Have you ever heard of him? Democritus? Well, Democritus said to Hippocrates, he says, you can't see it, you can't prove it, it's not there. It's just like your God, just like your religion. You can't prove it. Therefore, it doesn't exist. He says, what exists is matter. Atoms exist, and that's what counts. And so, since we are all simple matter, then all we have to do is be acted on simply. And so, thence we got this flushing of the body with minerals and chemicals and such to correct systems. So we have two entirely different branches here. Now, I find it interesting with medicine today. If you look at it, where do you think Dr. Christopher was? Was he with Hippocrates or was he with Democritus? He was with Hippocrates, yeah. The modern medical system today, does it sound more like Hippocrates or Democritus? Yeah, they sound like atomists, don't they? They believe in matter, and they act on matter, and that's what they do. Now, in order to understand vitology, let's talk just a little bit about modern medicine. It seems very complicated, but if you take it all and analyze it, modern medicine, this other side of medicinal therapies, if you take and analyze them, I think you can divide them into two categories. And it's not really two categories, it's two beliefs, because they believe in the two same things, and that would be the germ theory and the chemical imbalance theory. Can you think of anything else that they believe in? Okay, they believe that germs cause disease, and all we have to do is get rid of germs, then we don't have disease. And they believe that the body becomes dysfunctional, becomes out of balance chemically, and that you have to change the chemistry, and then you've healed the person. This is their forms of belief. If I came over here and sneezed on everyone in the front row, okay, you wouldn't appreciate it. Why? Because that would give you a greater chance of catching a disease. So, germs do cause disease, right? No. Because if I sneezed on everybody here, maybe one of them would catch the cold, maybe all three of them would catch cold, but I doubt if all four would. I know Dean wouldn't, because Dean is different than everybody else. What would make Dean different? And we could say that about anybody, but let's just take Dean as an example. What would make him different than the other three? Why would he not catch the cold and these three would?
On a 3-day cleanse.
He's on a 3-day cleanse. Okay, we're talking about environment. The environment is conducive to health. The environment here may not be. They might have had ding-dongs for breakfast. Twinkies, milk, great breakfast. You know, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and so these guys had a great big breakfast. Dean started his fast, or he broke his break fast, with fruit this morning. And he won't get into food really until noon. And so Dean does everything he needs to keep his body clean and functioning. He does the 3-day cleanse. He only puts pure water into his system. He doesn't drink tap water. He drinks distilled water. He doesn't eat foods with chemicals in. He eats organic food. He does all these things. You know, we had a student in England that came to us with a study that he found, done by the morticians. The morticians did this study comparing records of back in their grandfather's days with records today, or great-grandfather's days with today. And they found that they needed 30% less embalming fluid today than they needed back then. Did bodies change that? I mean, we're the same bodies, aren't we? And they came up with a conclusion that we take so many preservatives into our bodies from the foods we eat that we're just embalming ourselves over a long period of time. And by the time we die, we need 30% less embalming fluid to preserve us, because we've taken so many preservatives in. But it didn't preserve our length of stay any longer, did it? Of course, if you look at statistics, they'll say, well, we're living longer today. But quality of life, isn't that important too? And you get to someone to 65 years old and all of a sudden, bam, you know, they're in a nursing home, convalescent. So who cares, you know, that it's longer than that? What kind of life is that, to live in a convalescent home? So we get back to this little example here, you know. So Dean's not taking the embalming fluid, and these guys are. And when Dean gets a cold, he works through it. He lets the body work for itself. And these guys take Comtrex. And they stop the symptoms. And what are the symptoms of a cold? Sneezing, runny nose, diarrhea, frequent urination, sweating. Okay, so you take Comtrex and you don't have sweating, you don't have diarrhea, and you don't have frequent urination, and you don't have runny nose, and you've stopped the body from eliminating what? Toxins. As we live our lives and we just, in our environment, we breathe in pollutants. We eat pollutants. We drink pollutants. And the body has a wonderful system of getting rid of pollution. When we breathe in air, and if these pollutants are in there, what happens is they get trapped in this thin layer of mucus and then eliminated. And what's amazing also about this thin layer of mucus is there's these macrophages. A macrophage, someone tell me what a macrophage is?
It seeks and destroys germ toxins.
Exactly. Macrophages are large cells of the immune system. They're your first line of defense. And so these macrophages exist in the thin layer of mucus in the lungs. And as pollutants come in, they gobble them up. So you can eliminate them through coughing up the mucus, or the macrophages can gobble them up. Now, if a virus or a bacteria comes in, like if I sneeze on Jesus here, if a bacteria or virus comes into your lungs, Your body's way of handling that, see, the vitology of your body, the vitalism, these macrophages will gobble up the bacteria or virus and then recognize that that's something very dangerous to the body. And when viruses enter, they enter in a very large amount, and so macrophages are a little bit slow and can't really clean them all up. And so what they'll do is they'll take that genetic information to a T helper cell. And the T helper cell then recognizes the macrophage as being self and the bacteria or virus as being non-self and threatening. The T helper cell, because of its programming in the thymus gland, will then be able to recognize what the problem is and which T killer cells would be most efficient in killing that virus or bacteria. It then would contact the T killer cells that would be most effective against that particular invader, and the T killer cells then would multiply as rapidly as viruses and bacteria and destroy that invader. Interesting here, this information is fact, not fiction, but interesting here that I've taught my daughter about the immune system and such. And so when she took advanced biology in high school, this was left out. And she presented it to the teacher, and he said, "I don't think so." Teaching advanced biology. This information comes from a textbook on immunology for UCLA written in 1982. Okay, so the information's out there. And he got just about everything else right in the immune system, but he left out this one detail. Why would current texts leave out this important information about the T killer cells multiplying more rapidly than viruses or bacteria? Who writes the textbooks? Doctors that are funded by or given grants by the drug industry. What's the biggest selling drug available today? Antibiotics. You know, sometimes I think we're simplistic, but I look at them, and you can bet dollars to donuts, if you go to a doctor with a problem, you're going to get an antibiotic. No doubt about it. The biggest selling drug in their field are antibiotics. So what does it do to tell them, to tell students, to tell people around here that your body can do the same thing our antibiotics can do? That's counterproductive. That doesn't hit the bottom line of the bucks. And so that was conveniently left out of the textbooks. But your body can multiply its T killer cells faster than bacteria or viruses. And that's what takes care of disease. Now, let's change the scenario. That's Dean. That's the way Dean's body works. Dave woke up this morning and had his ding-dongs, okay? Now, if you eat a lot of sugar and refined food products that the body has a hard time breaking down and eliminating, it creates a lot of thickened mucus in your body, and especially in your lungs. Now, this thickened mucus is not conducive for the macrophages to exist in. The thin layer of mucus they can exist in. This thickened layer of mucus they cannot. So, if you are eating the wrong foods and thickening the mucus in your body, then you've destroyed the first line of defense for invaders. So these invaders enter, and the condition is great. There's nothing to keep them from multiplying. There is food that they need, the mucus in your system they can feed off of, and they can take hold. And then they get into your system, and then you come down with something. See? So, do germs cause disease? No, germs don't cause disease. Germs are opportunistic. Germs will enter a system where they can take hold. See, they're a much lower life form than we are. And in order for bacteria or viruses to even exist on this planet and to reproduce, to multiply, they have to commandeer our cells. They need us to reproduce. And so they find an environment where they can reproduce. And what we're doing now with eating ding-dongs and Twinkies and white bread and milk and all this stuff is we're saying, come on in. The weather's fine. This is what you need to reproduce. And we invite disease in. So, germs may be a catalyst for disease and may be important. You can't have a disease without germs, but germs do not cause disease. We invite germs in. Now, even though we've invited them in, they have their upside. And the upside is this, that once they do get in and our immune system finally recognizes them, it becomes a stimuli to our immune system. So, these germs enter, our immune system charges into action, and we do what? We expectorate, we eliminate mucus, we run at the bowels because the body wants to get rid of it. And it's not a very good practice to stop all those functions. And a lot of herbalists are only allopathic herbalists. You know what allopathy is? That's their form of medicine. They're atomists. Okay? They believe in the germ theory and they believe in the chemical imbalance theory. And so we don't like to think of ourselves as allopathic herbalists. We like to think of ourselves as vitalists. And so that's why the School of Natural Healing has its name. We didn't call ourselves the Great College of Herbs or Herbal Dominion or anything else. We don't even have herb in our title. Yet I think we're one of the finest herb schools in America. But we use the term natural healing because herbs by themselves are not the answer. They're a good aid, but they're certainly not the answer. Now, we'll get back to this vitalism. And I hope you see that by keeping the body clean, then we're going to keep disease from coming in. Let's talk about chemical imbalance theory. Okay. Again, we have our four people here on the front row. And Dean tends to be different again because he's got a different condition now. He's not the good, clean eater that he was before. Dean now, his blood sugar level is lower. His blood sugar level seems to fluctuate, and his insulin level is lower than these other three. So, the theory's right, isn't it? He's chemically imbalanced. So we need to give him something to bring his insulin level up, don't we? What happens if we give Dean insulin? He's not diabetic, but his insulin level is low. So we give him insulin. What's going to happen to him?
I'll stop producing it.
Yeah. So he's here. Everyone else is here. So we figure he needs to be here. So we bring him here. Well, what happens is he will make less insulin because his body says, I'm supposed to be here. And so then when he makes less, then of course we're down again. So we give him more, and he makes less. We give him more, he makes less. And we make him diabetic. See? We can chemically imbalance him even more because he knows where he's supposed to be. And why is he there? Who knows? Maybe his liver is not functioning properly. You know, the liver stores the sugar for the body. And so if that sugar isn't there in storage, it's not going to be released into the system. If it's not released in the system, why should the pancreas make more? So maybe it's only geared to his liver. And maybe his pancreas is saying, hey, I'm supposed to be here because the liver's here. And maybe it's not a pancreas problem at all. Maybe it's the liver problem. Or maybe Dean is just so stressed out. Maybe he's just so stressed and strung out that his adrenal glands aren't working. Now, his adrenal glands sends the chemical to the liver telling it to release sugar. Maybe his liver's fine. Maybe it's the adrenal glands. Maybe he's just so stressed that the adrenal glands isn't sending the signal to release the right amount of sugar. So it's not a liver problem at all. It's not a pancreas problem at all. Maybe it's an adrenal problem. It could be a variation of a lot of different things. And to go in and give insulin is tantamount to insanity. But we see it all the time. Okay? It's not just with insulin. It's with anything. When they believe in the chemical imbalance theory, then they're going to treat your body exactly the way they would with diabetes here. Okay. One of the best examples, I guess, would be steroid therapy. And this was very popular in the 70s and 80s. These guys wanted to get real big, so the doctors prescribed for them. And this didn't come off the street. They didn't go up to some gang member and say, steroids, you got steroids. They went to the doctors. And the doctors gave them steroids. And with steroid therapy, did it work? You're right, it worked. It worked, yeah. These guys got really big taking these steroids. Great big muscular. Hi, how you doing? Now, why would that happen? Why would they get these great big muscles and this squeaky little voice? Their hormone level is here. And we say, it's not supposed to be here, it's supposed to be here. So we give artificial hormones and put it here. What does their body do? Makes less. Okay? So you're getting the hormones necessary for building the bulk, but not all the other hormones. And we don't have one hormone in our body, do we? Men have male hormones and female hormones. Women have female hormones and male hormones. You don't ever want to see a woman that's only got female hormones. And you don't want to see a male that's only got male hormones. Okay? Those guys usually end up in prison. So here these guys are screwing around with their hormone level. And these guys that were on these steroids, they were unpredictable. I read about one football player that he was driving along the street and the guy in front of him had his blinker on. You know? He turned and his blinker didn't turn off. And so he's driving down the street with his blinker. And so at the next the next light, he gets out of his car, rips the door open, pulls the guy out and beats him to a pulp because his light was blinking, you know. Not a normal action. But I think that kind of explains the chemical imbalance theory. You can apply that to anything. I think one of the best places to apply it today would be in neuroleptic drugs. Okay. They've done tests and shown that your most violent prisoners have a low level of serotonin, chemical produced in the brain as a signal between cells. I'm the nerve sending cell, and Dave here is the receptor cell. Okay. I light a firecracker, and he hears it. That's the signal between us. That's the serotonin. Prozac, what it does is it blocks. Most drugs will either block or replace a body function. Serotonin, they believe, blocks the escape of serotonin. So see what happens there? That firecracker never goes out because the serotonin is not allowed to leave. So the serotonin is always there. So the normal pattern of nerve to nerve is signal, out. Prozac, signal on, always. Now when that switch is left on, what's going to happen?
Burn out.
It's going to burn out, yeah. If I light a firecracker here, he's going to get that signal, but if that firecracker never goes out, he's going to go. So I light a bigger firecracker, and then he's going to have to go. And pretty soon, he's just going to atrophy. Or me as a sender is going to, I'm going to finally recognize, hey, there's too much signal, and I'll stop sending. Either rate, what's the resulting effect of this therapy?
No communication.
Yeah, and low levels of serotonin. See, they said, the problem with you is you don't have enough serotonin. So they make it so you have more serotonin, and what happens? Then the resulting effect is no serotonin. Now, they're putting a lot of prisoners on Prozac. What happens when they leave prison? And they can't get their Prozac. $100 a bottle. Yeah. The scenario is unbelievable. But it's a very dangerous drug. And so what we would do, we would vitalistically make the body healthier. We would feed the body exactly the things it needs to make serotonin. And those are available. Try soybeans. Soybeans are high in choline, and that's a precursor to serotonin. So when you have a cold or flu, is your body functioning or not functioning? It's functioning. The reaction you see to a cold is the body's functioning. When you have a fever, is the body functioning or not functioning? If it's functioning, why would you want to stop a fever? Why would you want to take an aspirin and stop a fever, which is the standard way that the medical profession looks at fevers? They're kind of starting to change a little bit because of Reye's syndrome. But now they're taking Tylenol to stop a fever. They don't seem to get the point, do they? What happens with a fever? When the body temperature goes up, the immune system kicks in. And so when the temperature rises, proportionately to that rise, you get a larger amount of macrophages, T helper cells, killer cells, B cells. The body kicks into action full force. Now, if you have a problem and something needs to be cleansed out of your system, does it do to call off your army? There's a battle going on in there. And what your army needs to give it impetus is a fever. The temperature is important for incubating your immune system, for getting it going. So when you have a fever, if you just shut it off, then you've defeated your purpose. And I've seen a lot of herbalists out there, and they give willow bark for someone that has a fever. What does willow bark do? The same thing aspirin does. That's an allopathic herbalist. And we don't want to be allopathic herbalists. We want to be vitalists. We want to be holistic. We want to look at the body and say, the body's functioning. So, what do we do when someone has a fever? We throw them in a tub of hot water and make them hotter. And we give them a lot of yarrow tea, which does what? Makes them sweat. Or we can even give them cayenne. Give them anything that'll make them sweat. We make them hotter. And you go, whoa, whoa, you'll burn out brain cells. Whoa, that's an interesting twist on that. You'll burn out brain cells if your temperature goes too high. Your temperature will not go too high. Dr. Mendelsohn, in his book, How to Raise a Healthy Child in Spite of Your Doctor, states that the body will not go over 107 degrees. It has its own system for checking that. There's always exceptions to every rule. Now, people's temperature have gone over 107, but not because of a germ, not because the body sent the temperature up. The body will not send the temperature up over 107. And if it's the body that's in control of that temperature, it won't do it. It's not going to destroy itself. So why would somebody's temperature go over 107? And they fall down, bump their head, throws off the mechanism, and then they don't have that constraining device that'll keep it from going over 107. So, if someone has had an injury, and you always have to ask, you know, someone says, I got a fever, what should I do? You go, build it. No, first you say, well, what caused the fever? Well, I don't know, it just came on. Oh, you didn't bump your head or anything? I mean, there's no accident, no injury? No. Then you go, throw them in a tub of hot water. Let's get the thing going. Let's get them over the problem. See, our philosophy is very different from what's becoming very popular today. This vitalistic type of herbology is very different from Chinese traditional medicine. Chinese traditional medicine does what? It brings you into balance. The yin-yang has to be in balance. Everything has to be in balance. If you have a hot, dry condition, you want to give a cool, wet herb and bring the body into balance. See? You don't want a fever to go rampant. You don't want anything. You want to bring the body into balance. If you bring the body into balance with a fever, is the body going to be able to function properly? No. See, you can do very naturally you can bring a fever down. How do you do that? They've got a temperature of 106. You put them in a tub that's 105. And then as soon as it gets to 105, then you take 104, 103, 102, and you bring it down. Very naturally, isn't it? But is that what you want to do? See, and Chinese traditional medicine is very natural. But it's a different philosophy. And we contend that if you always bring someone into balance, they'll never cleanse. But if you cleanse somebody, they'll come into balance. It's a different way of looking at it. We look at the body when it gets hot and dry as saying, the body's functioning in its way. So we're just going to help it out. Now we don't want to give it dry, hot heat, but we find that water therapy works very well. And so if you use water in your heat therapy, then it's going to work excellent. And in fact, even more than herbs, I use water therapy. When I feel like I'm coming down with something, I will put myself in a tub of hot water. I'll go get in the sauna. I'll do whatever I can to get the problem out. So much different. So the body does function, and we want to work with it. If somebody comes in to see you, and they're coming in, I'm 32 years old, and I can't keep up with the 20-year-olds. What do you do for them? Let me tell you what an associate of mine does. He works down in Malibu, California, so he works with a lot of directors and actors and movie stars. Here's what happens to these people. They go into their doctor and they say that. They go, hey, I am 32 years old. I am worn out. I can't make it through a day. I can't keep up with the younger ones. They're going to replace me. What am I going to do? What does the doctor do for them? Chemically imbalanced. And they give them a legal upper. And does it work? You bet it works. And then they can carry on their activities, and wow, they're doing great and everything, and then they go back to the doctor. I can't sleep. What does the doctor do for them? Give them a legal downer, sleeping pill. Okay? Uppers and downers and uppers and downers, uppers and downers. You know, these people don't get into hard drugs by one day waking up and going, I'm going to go down and find myself a blood or a crypt, and I'm going to grab them and say, I want to do drugs. That's not how hard drugs start. Hard drugs start right in the doctor's office with the philosophy that you're chemically imbalanced. Uppers and the downers and such, you know, and everything to put you back where you're supposed to be. So drugs take care of everything. I'm just feeling down and depressed, and so I'll just take a hard drug. It's no different than it's just more refined. And so you take this hard drug, and then you get that effect. Do drugs work? Why do people take hard drugs? To get euphoric. So do drugs work? You're right, they work. Do prescription drugs work? You're right, they work. But it's not that they work, it's what they're doing to your body. You know, yeah, what we're doing with prescription drugs, all these chemicals, what we're doing just like Democritus said, we are simple matter and can be acted on simply. We can control the body. And that's what the whole thing with the medical profession is. Control, control, control. Let's control the body the way we want to do. The thing is, you get that initial response from the drug, but then the body reacts differently to it, doesn't it? And so you need more and more of the drug to get that stimulus, because your body's own mechanism for depression is gone. When you're depressed, what does the body produce? Endorphins. You have your own chemical the body makes. And that will bring you out of depression. If you're taking an artificial stimulus, if you're taking an artificial drug to control that condition, what happens? Again, okay, you're depressed, so you take this. Your body makes less endorphins. Are you ever going to get over depression? No. Okay, so we have somebody come into us and says the same thing. I feel just so drug out. What am I going to do? What do we give them? Pep! Super pep! We got the strongest, the best herbal stimulus that you've ever seen. Who are we acting like? Hippocrates or Democritus? Yeah. So what do we want to do for somebody when they come in feeling strung out? Let me tell you what Cayenne does. This is the practitioner in Malibu. Somebody comes into him and they say, 32 years old, I can't make it through the day. These 20-year-olds are going to take my place. What am I going to do? And he looks him square in the eye and says, when's the last time you pooped? To movie stars, he says this, you know, to directors, you know. So you have to realize something about these guys. They've got this expensive equipment rolling. They're on a $1 million a day budget or more, okay? They get up there on the set, and are they going to say, hold everything, I've got to go potty? No, they go, and they hold it in. And they do that long enough, and that's going to be the pattern. And so he found that the average transit time in Southern California with the people he was working with, once a week. One bowel movement a week. Hey, and that's not extreme. He's found them once a month. This one gal, it's so funny, we asked her, are you regular? Yes. She had all these problems. We knew she wasn't regular. No, are you regular? Do you regularly move your bowels? Yes. You know what she thought regular was? Once a month. She thought it came with her period. It's, you know, once a month. That's the way it goes. And we watched her eat lunch. She bought a pound of cheese. She ate cheese for lunch. The most constipating food in the world, cheese. Look at the consistency. What's it going to do in your system? It's going to clog it up. Cheese. So, he takes these movie stars and directors and producers and these big wigs, and he asks them this question. And what do you think he puts them on? The Bowel formula. Okay, he charges them $100 an hour to basically depoop them. I mean, you can do the same thing for $8.50 with the Dr. Christopher's Bowel formula, which isn't just a depooper, but it's a tonic. All of Dr. Christopher's formulas are tonics. In fact, he used to call them tonics, and the Food and Drug Administration said, you can't use that word. You can't use the word tonic. So he had to take tonic out of the title of his formulas. So it used to be called lower bowel tonic, and the Food and Drug Administration said, no, you can't use the term tonic. So he changed all his labels to lower bowel palliative. And they said, palliative okay because it means it might or might not, but you can't use the word lower bowel because it indicates it does something for the lower bowel. And he says, well, it does. And they go, are you making a claim? And he goes, no. Okay, so he came up with a term that means nothing. Phen-LB. What does Phen-LB mean? It means the most wonderful product you could ever take. And so what we do for these people that are drug out and can't seem to make it, we put them on Dr. Christopher's lower bowel tonic. And what happens? It cleans their system out, it starts to tone it, and all of a sudden they've got more energy than they've felt for years. Because they're not carrying around 10, 20, 30 pounds of something down here, you know. They're not dragging, okay, they're cleaned out. And all of a sudden they feel better. They feel vibrant. And you know, this associate of mine down there, he has so many referrals. I mean, people don't just say to their friends, hey, you got to get this bowel formula. They go, you got to go see this guy. So they set their friends up, you know, and then they pay the $100. And he has all this business coming through, just basically helping people to cleanse their colon. Dr. Christopher had a lady come through his door holding two guys by the nape of the neck. Okay. These two young kids were just kicking at each other and hitting. I mean, she couldn't keep them apart. She said, if I let them go, they're going to kill each other. What am I going to do for them? He says, lower bowel tonic. Phen-LB. You know, what would you have thought? Maybe some relaxes, maybe something to calm them down, you know. They're sitting here in class, you know, kicking their desk, and their teacher goes, this kid's got a Ritalin deficiency. We would maybe give him the lower bowel formula, Phen-LB. Maybe that's all his problem is. Or maybe his problem is it's a boring teacher. Anybody ever take that into account? That maybe there are 23 kids in the class that have been conditioned to put up with boring. And maybe this one kid just won't do it. Maybe this one kid just goes, this teacher is boring. So maybe he just needs another teacher. I contend that no one ever should be put on Ritalin. That maybe what they need to do with these children that don't seem to fit in is take them out and give them another teacher. Also, another thing that you might want to consider is that, as Dr. Peter Breggin says in his book Toxic Psychiatry, he's a psychiatrist from Bethesda, Maryland, and he says there is no such thing as attention deficit disorder. ADD is a psychological condition invented by and for psychiatrists. Because there's no such thing. He says he had this one patient, and he analyzed him for a while, and I mean, the parents dropped him off and said, "You better tie everything down in your office. He'll just destroy everything you have." And after interviewing him, parents came back and he says, "I don't want to see him anymore." And they thought, "Boy, he was worse than we thought." He says, "No, I want to see you." And he brought them in and discussed with them the problems. And this boy didn't have ADD either, because there's no such thing as ADD. Because, you know, if he can't concentrate in school, you know, that's one thing. You know, that's not saying he can't concentrate on anything. And the same boy, you can take him home and his video game, boy, he can concentrate for hours. Something that he's interested in. And so Dr. Breggin said, "Your son doesn't have ADD. He's got DADD, a condition invented by Dr. Breggin, at least named by Dr. Breggin. You know what that stands for? Dad attention deficit disorder. The father wasn't giving him any attention. And the wife suffered from HAD, HADD, husband attention deficit disorder. And so, since she was getting no attention from her husband, she was grabbing it from her son. And so, what he got was no attention from dad and clean from his mother. And the problem was resolved from the dad spending time with his son and giving the type of time that his wife needed. And she stopped clinging, and all of a sudden things cleared up. He didn't need to be on Ritalin. Herbally, what would we do here, besides psychologically? If we do all these other things and we still have kind of a problem, what do? Well, we don't give them sugar for lunch. These teachers are sitting there, they go to school lunch and they get all this sugar and milk, okay? And then in the afternoon, they're just bonkers and they're bouncing off the ceiling and the walls and stuff, and they go, boy, most kids are hyperactive. And so they have one drug, sugar, and they compensate for it by another drug, Ritalin. So, the very simple thing to do would be to make the body right. Because we are imbalancing the body by taking a chemical. And so, what do? You stop taking the chemical. You stop taking sugar. And a lot of these problems clear up. If you take sugar over a long enough period, you're going to be deficient in a lot of substances, because when you isolate the sweet chemical from the plant, all those other chemicals that were supposed to be with it have to be made up for. So when sugar is taken into the body, it has to have all those other nutrients combined with it in order for it to work. It has to go back to square one again. We were never meant to live on pure sugar. Our bodies were meant to break it down, use its components, send it to the liver, store it, and then as we needed energy, the liver would then release the sugar as directed by the adrenal glands, and then the pancreas would then put enough insulin into the body so the two could combine, because you can't use sugar by itself and you can't use insulin by itself. And that's how the body works. But we shortchange that system by taking pure sugar in, because then it doesn't have to go to the liver, it goes right into the bloodstream. So what happens is we take a lot of sugar into our body, it goes right in the bloodstream, and the pancreas goes, whoa! And the pancreas shoots in a lot of insulin to make up for all the sugar that was in the bloodstream, and then that goes out faster than your normal sugar that the liver releases, and then all of a sudden you've got all this insulin in your body with no sugar. And then the liver has to kick in to make up for the insulin that's, you know. So we're just jacking our bodies up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. It's no wonder that one of the biggest problems in America today is the blood sugar disorders. But the medical community has saved us by giving us insulin. Now, I contend, I don't contend that wasn't a wonderful drug and it saves lives. But if we go back to the cause of the problem, there would never ever be any need for insulin, would there? herbs that we would use for that would be fenugreek, Germ, and to clear up the problem, Dr. Christopher came up with a wonderful formula for the pancreas, his pancreas tonic. Food and Drug Administration says we can't use the word tonic, so we're going to call it pancreas palliative. Can't use the word palliative, so we're going to call it something else. Maybe we can disguise it by just calling it pank. It doesn't say anything, right? Dr. Christopher had somebody come see him, and he had a urinary problem. And the guy didn't have a lot of money, and so Dad says, okay, well, do you know what juniper looks like? He says, of course I know what juniper looks like. He says, well, just take and eat the berries off the tree. He says, okay, that'll clear my problem? He goes, yeah. Comes back a week later and he goes, well, Doc, took those juniper berries and didn't do a thing. And he says, what? Yeah, didn't do anything. He says, well, I've never seen them to fail. And he said, well, I got some right here. And he pulls them out and he goes, Dr. Christopher looks at him and says, boy, these are the funniest looking juniper berries I ever saw. He took one and he opened it up and it only had one great big stone in it. He says, this ain't juniper. I don't know what you've got here, but this isn't what I told you to take. He says, juniper, I described the size, and he says it's got like 3 to 5 seeds in it. That's juniper. He says, well, I got some of those too. He says, well, that's the one you need to take. He says, just throw these away and go take those. He says, oh, okay, I'll do that. He says, but I ain't throwing these away. Dr. Christopher says, why? He says, because since I've been taking them, I've cut my insulin level in half. And so, quite by accident, he discovered the main ingredient in the pank formula, in the pank tea. Cedar berries. Not true cedar, but it's actually Juniperus monosperma, which is the variety of juniper that works for blood sugar irregularities. So, if someone comes in to you and says, I've got a blood sugar problem, what do you put them on? No, not pank tea. You put them on fennel B. You need to cleanse their system out. Okay. You need to maybe put them on liveron or barberry LG, the liver formula. Because where's the sugar stored? Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you want to put them on the adrenal formula, Dr. Christopher's adrenal formula, the adrenatone. Maybe you want to put them on that. Okay? And also on the pancreas formula. So you put them on all of them, and you know what? You're going to get some really good success. You want to cleanse the system out. You want to keep things functioning. You also might want to think about the Juniper's formula to clear out the urinary system. You see, if the liver is dysfunctioning, then and it's not taking the toxins from the system and detoxifying and putting them into bile and eliminating them through the bowel, where are those toxins going to go? They're either going to get kicked back in the bloodstream or they're going to be put in the urinary tract. And when that happens, then the urinary tract is a much more delicate organ, and then you can damage the urinary tract. So we never find a liver patient where we don't find a kidney patient, kidney bladder. Okay. It just kind of goes hand in hand. If someone comes into you and says, I got boil, I got acne, what do I do? What do I do? What do you give them? Chaparral? Chaparral will work. Start cleansing the system out so that the body's not pushing it out through the skin, that the body's actually sending it through its normal eliminative channels. But what did we just saw in the news recently? What's the Food and Drug Administration done with Chaparral? They pull it from the market. Why? Because it worked or because it didn't work? Because it worked. And how did it work? It cleansed. It cleanses the system. It cleanses the cell structure. It cleanses, and where does it put it? It puts it into the blood. And where does the blood take it? To the liver. So, these two cases where they had inflammation of the liver when they took Chaparral, why did they have that? Because their liver wasn't functioning. It wasn't turning these toxins into bile, and so the Chaparral was working beautifully, bringing the toxins into the liver to be detoxified. But the liver wasn't functioning. And these toxins had no place to go. So they were either kicked back in the blood, or with these people, they stayed there and caused inflammation because the liver couldn't work. Do you know why we've never seen that with Dr. Christopher's formulas? What did Dr. Christopher put in his red clover combination? Yeah, he put cascara and barberry in. What does that do? Why would he put those two things in a blood cleansing formula? You know, we used to look at that formula and go, why does he put a bowel thing in the blood cleansing formula? Why does he put a liver thing in the blood cleansing formula? Because he knew that when toxins leave the cell structure into the blood, they go to the liver. And so he put barberry in there to help with that. And then he put the cascara in there to move it out all the way. Because, you know, it doesn't help to have the liver change it into bile, put it into the bowel, and if the bowel's not moving, if the bowel's not functioning, if the bowel's not eliminating, then what's it going to do? It's going to either sit there and cause complaints in the bowel, or it's going to get kicked back in the bloodstream again. So, and then what we try to do is that may be not enough with the red clover combination. So we give them the barberry LG and the fennel B2 to keep the process going smooth. In fact, probably a really good thing is to put them on the barberry LG and the fennel B first, and then the red clover combination, so we get that system moving. And if the liver hasn't been functioning, what do we want to take? Junipars. We want to get the urinary tract cleansed and rebuilt. It used to be called his kidney and bladder tonic, but we can't use tonic. The FDA says we can't use tonic. We can't say that these herbs are for anything. And I guess we need to make a disclaimer here, as we should any time, that I'm here talking to you because there's a historical significance to the Dr. Christopher formulas. And I know you can't make any claims for them, and you shouldn't, because that's what the law of the land says. But just for your own information, it'd be very nice for you to see how it all comes together. And so that's why we're talking about these things. This brings us around to the fact that there is only one cause of disease. It's only one. We can bring it all down into one simple term. You know, the medical profession has got thousands and thousands of conditions categorized. It's amazing, you know, just to see all the different things. And people, there's not a day goes by that someone doesn't call me and say, do you have something for this condition? I've never heard of it before. I mean, they've got so many conditions, but there's only one condition. There's only one disease. There's only one cause of disease. And what is that? Constipation. Constipation throughout the whole system. Okay? Blockage. Accumulations of toxins. Now, we're all born equally, aren't we? No, we're all born with certain different traits and conditions. And we have what are called inherited weaknesses. That because our family line did things a certain way, certain conditions existed with them. And if you do iridology, if you look into the eyes, you can see where someone has inherited weaknesses, even when they're a baby. And you can look at families. You look at the father, and you look at the baby, and you look at the grandmother, you know, and you can tell the same patterns in the eyes. Because these inherited weaknesses are passed down. They just get more intense through each generation. And so what we do is we have inherited weaknesses. You can best describe this as with automobiles, okay? Is a Rolls-Royce the same as a Volkswagen? Or a Cadillac the same as a Volkswagen? Or even a Chevrolet the same as a Volkswagen? You know, we're all born with either Rolls-Royce bodies, Cadillac bodies, or Volkswagen bodies. And this can be seen in the eyes. You can tell what people's inherited weaknesses are. Some people have more inherited weaknesses than others. Well, if you take care of these vehicles the right way, then you can have a long life for any of them. It doesn't matter whether it's a Rolls-Royce or a Volkswagen. There's people that have Volkswagens that have gone 500,000 miles. And there are people that have Rolls-Royces that have gone 20,000 miles and end up on the garbage heap. They weren't taken care of. And so it doesn't matter if we were born with a lot of inherited weaknesses or not. That can be overcome. And so iridology kind of helps to look into what inherited weaknesses are. And if you're interested in it, the School of Natural Healing does have courses on iridology. And you inquire about those, and we'd be glad to give you information on iridology. But you don't even have to know iridology. All you need to know is that we do have inherited weaknesses, and that's what causes disease. These keychains that I'm going to give away, if you answer correct questions. Say you don't want to answer correct questions. Say you're shy. David's shy. Okay. So we're going to take Dave. Come here, Dave. We're going to send him out of the room. We're going to send him out of the room. You don't have to go out. Just hide your, okay? Just look the other way. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Okay. And then we're going to take this keychain and we're going to put it here. And we're going to say, Dave, come in and find this keychain. And you don't have to answer a question. All you have to do is find it. So he comes in. Come find this keychain. Oh, you're getting warmer. You're getting warmer. You're getting warmer. Ah, you're getting colder. Warmer. 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 Oh, you're hot. Oh, there it is. There's your keychain, Dave. You can have that. So you didn't even have to answer a question.
Thank you.
You've all played that game before, okay? And your body kind of plays that game with you. It'll give you a signal when you're doing things right. When you're doing things wrong, it'll give you a signal. Pain is a signal from the body. And when you have pain, your body's just telling you something's wrong. Maybe there's too many accumulated toxins in one area, and your body's saying, you got to get rid of the accumulated toxins, or, you know, something's going to happen. And so it gives you pain signal. Well, this is a very important meeting. So what we've done for this meeting is we disconnected the fire alarm. Because this meeting's more important than a fire. And if a fire happens, well, a fire happens. We may all burn up, but this is an important meeting. You can't miss anything what I'm going to say. This is what you're doing when you're taking a painkiller, is you're clipping the wires on the alarm system. Your body's only telling you something's wrong. So isn't it better that we follow the correct procedures and the body will give less pain? See? So we always thought we were hampered in this field because the authorities have taken away the best pain relievers in the herbal field. You can't get cocoa leaves. You can't get poppy seeds. You can't make these nice extracts that you can get good pain relief from. You can't use marijuana. Okay, all the natural pain relievers are illegal. But you can get the synthetics, can't you? Any street corner in America, you can buy cocaine. You can buy heroin. Okay? Morphine is all synthetically made from petroleum. You can't get a natural morphine. So we used to think, well, we're really hampered. You know, they need to release and let us have our pain relievers. I say, thank goodness we don't have our pain relievers, because that's just, again, clipping the fire alarm. And if we do the right things, the pain will go away. There's a little game that I like to play. Games are fun, and they show things. There's a game we like to play, and I don't think we have time to do it now, but we would take you all and put you in a circle around me. And you put your feet up on my ankles, okay? And then you're sitting down on the floor, and I'm standing here like this, and I'll stand here like this. And then Dave will maybe be sitting behind me and push me over. And I don't bend my legs, I just go over like this. And if this person over here doesn't want me to fall on top of them, they'll push me back. And so what happens is you just start spinning in this circle because nobody wants you. Okay? And finally, somebody weaker is going to go, I don't want him. Ah! And yeah, I fall right on top of him. Well, this is how the body works with these inherited weaknesses. Okay? The body doesn't want these toxins in its system, and its route of getting rid of them is via the bloodstream, the liver, the bowels, out it goes, or the urinary tract. That's the way the body works. If those systems are blocked up, what's the body going to do with these toxins? Well, nobody wants them, so it's going to shove them. It's like, I don't want them, and off it goes. And so these toxins will go all over the body until there's a weaker part of the body, your inherited weakness. Okay? There's an inherited part of your body that's a little weaker, and it's going to go, I don't want them, I don't want them. That's where they land. That's why some people have cardiovascular disease, and some people have lung disease, and some people have liver disease, and some people have bowel disease, and some people have brain disease. But you see, there's only one cause of disease, and that's accumulations of toxins, blockage of the cleansing channels. And they build up in those areas. There's a great new drug out on the market. Has anybody read about it? This newest drug does nothing. There's no medicinal action to this drug. But it's a very valuable drug, and the stock went up on this company when they came up with this drug. Because it does do one thing, and that is it compromises the blood-brain barrier. The brain-blood barrier. The blood-brain barrier. It compromises it. Why do you think we have a blood-brain barrier? Why do you think there's a barrier between our bodies and our brain? To protect, to keep toxins out, to keep substances out that are not supposed to be there. Well, now they've come up with a drug that'll get by it. See, they've come up with other drugs that do that. You have aspen or willow, and you get from that salicin. Salicin is a substance that's in there. And they used to take willow, and you kind of get rid of headaches by taking willow and get rid of fever and stuff. Then they took salicin, they refined it, and took the chemical out of the willow and came up with salicin. And they took salicin, they found that was effective, a little faster than taking the willow by itself. Not necessarily better, but a little faster. Well, they found that wasn't fast enough, so they made salicylic acid, one more step of processing. And salicylic acid got in faster to the system. And they found, and that just wasn't doing fast enough, so they added an acetylene group to it and made acetyl salicylic acid, which is aspirin. Acetyl salicylic acid. And the acetylene group helped it to bypass the blood-brain barrier, which got aspirin right into your brain. Okay? And made aspirin work fast. And this drug does the same thing. It bypasses the blood-brain barrier. And you'd have to kind of look at the chemistry of it and everything, but molecules are knocked off as it goes through. They're the ones that carry it through, and they're knocked off, and then the drug is released to do whatever it needs to do. Very ingenious. But anyway, you can take this same drug and add any other drug to it and get that drug into the brain. Isn't that wonderful? Now we can compromise the blood-brain barrier. Now, once it's in there, where's it going to go? It doesn't have those things that got it in combined with it. Where's it going to go? It's going to stay. And do you think there's stronger areas of the brain and weaker areas of the brain? So everyone's going to be pushing, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it, and someone's going to go, ah! And so you get this pocket of toxins building up. Why do you think there's so many tumors today? I don't think there was as many brain tumors back in the old days as there is now. But it's accumulations of toxins. And maybe some of us are a little inheritedly weak in our brains. I hope not. But at any rate, you see the process here. All right? Now, what then would we give for someone that has accumulated toxins in their brain? Or anywhere in the body? What would we do? Let's say you have accumulated toxins in your brain. Someone's got a brain tumor. What do you do for them? You drill a hole in their head and you pull it out. That's not going to solve the problem, is it? Put a shunt in there and you'll probably drain the rest of your life. What is the solution? What would we give to someone that had brain tumors? I got a keychain here for somebody. Phenyl B. You give them phenyl B. Why do you give them phenyl B? For their brain? You give them a depooper for their brain? Well, of course. You have to get the eliminative channels open. If a truck jackknifes on the freeway, what's the best way to get that solution taken care of? You put more cars on the freeway, don't you? No, you don't start cleansing the brain out. You get the jackknife. You get the jackknife truck off the freeway. Then you can start cleansing, can't you? Okay, well, you get the jackknife truck out of your bowel. You stop the blockage. And you don't know where the blockage is. All you know is there's blockage. So you start from the very end result. You'd get the bowel moving. What's the next thing we'd give them? You give them barberry LG. Because where are toxins going to go? They're going to go to the liver. And the liver needs to make bile to detoxify and put it into the bile so it can eliminate it through the bowel. Exactly. What's the next thing we're going to give them?
Red clover combination.
Right. So we give them red clover combination, which starts cleansing the toxins out of the cell structure. Okay? And then what would we give them? Well, yeah, what would we give them then? Pink tea? Phenyl B? Junipars? Okay. Junipars, because we know that if there's a liver problem, there's probably most likely a kidney bladder problem, and we do need to do more elimination through the urinary tract. Okay. All right. Now we can get into specifics. We got the general cleansing of the body going. What about the head? We want to cleanse the head out. What are we going to do? Ginkgo? Okay. Who do you want to give that to? Who's your friend? Okay. Ginkgo. What else would we want to give him? If we got blockage in our head, what do we want to give them? We could do the sensei. Yeah, we could do the sensei. Sensei, we would take the sensei and we'd rub it in the eyebrows, down the side of the nose, across the cheeks, and that's going to stimulate elimination of mucus from the sinuses. What else is going to... Okay. SHA, sinus hyperallergy formula, to start cleansing out the sinuses. Because all drainage from the brain is going to go through the eustachian tubes. The eyes drain through the eustachian tubes, the ears drain through the eustachian tubes. What's the easiest route to the eustachian tubes? The sinuses. So if you start cleansing the sinuses, you're going to cleanse the eustachian tubes. If you cleanse the eustachian tubes, then you're going to get the drainage in the brain going. And then you'll get, that's the way you get rid of tumors. You allow the body to cleanse. You think the body wants it there in that area? The body doesn't want it there in that area. The body wants to get rid of it, but it can't. So you open up the channels of elimination, and the body will release the toxins that are built up in that tumor. Simple enough? Okay. Say the accumulation isn't in the head. Say the accumulation's in the lungs. Okay. What's the first thing we give for the lungs? Phenyl B. Who's your friend? Here. Okay, phenyl B. First thing you give them. All right. For a lung problem, what's the second thing you give them? That's the third thing. I'll still give you. Okay, rest-free. To gently cleanse mucus out of the system and also send it through the lymph and the blood and into the liver. Okay. So what was the second thing we give them? Barberry LG. Yeah. Okay, we give them the phenyl B, the barberry LG, and it would probably help to do some cleansing too, so the red clover combination and the Respertine. Yeah, okay. So if it's a sinus problem, we same thing with the head thing that we did before. All right. What happens if someone has cardiovascular problems? What's the first thing we give them? Oh, sorry. Probably the worst place I could have thrown that. Okay, yeah. That's the first thing we do. For cardiovascular conditions, we give them phenyl B because if there's blockage. Why is blood pressure high? Why is it high? Because it's trying to force its way through blockage, right? And if we want to get rid of blockage, what do we get rid of? Pardon?
The jackknife truck.
Yeah, that jackknife truck. Now, so we start off with the phenyl B to get rid of the blockage for this cardiovascular condition. What's the next thing we give them? Barberry LG. Right, you're right. Okay, we give them barberry LG. Okay, next thing we give them? Red clover combination. Right. Okay. Kind of you just said that at the same time. Rick was going. So I saw Rick's lips going, and I heard Dean's voice. I thought, Rick, you're a good imitator. Okay, so we give them red clover combination. Then what do we do for them? We're going to work on specifics now. So if you have a cardiovascular condition, if the blood pressure is high, you've got blockage. And you start to take care of the blockage with the freeway. Now what do you work on? Yeah. Okay. All right. BPE. Okay. Blood pressure equalizer is going to help force blood through the system better. It's going to help circulation better. But is that going to stop the blockage? Okay. What is blocking the veins? What is in there? What's in there?
Twinkies.
Twinkies. You got to pull those Twinkies out. Surgically remove those Twinkies. Yeah. Ballooning's only going to temporarily move it out, and it's going to come right back in again. They find that that ballooning operation is the worst. They might as well not have done it in the first place, because what they do is they put that little uninflated balloon into the veins, and then they blow it up, and they press those apart, and it kind of smashes the cholesterol. Oops, I gave it away. It kind of smashes the cholesterol against the veins, and it opens up, and everybody goes, wow, that's a great operation. And then all of a sudden it goes, and then they have to have bypass surgery. So it's like, then you get 2 operations for 1. First you balloon it, and then you cut it. Okay. So what we want to do is get that accumulation out, don't we? And the red clover combination is going to start helping, all right? Eating properly. You stop eating the Twinkies and the sugar and the fatty products, the animal products. You do away with animal products, and then nutrition becomes very easy. If you eliminate animal products, nutrition becomes very easy. You eliminate animal products and refined food products, nutrition becomes very easy. So you stop putting the stuff in that's causing the collections. You start doing the red clover combination, the BPE and stuff to bring the accumulations out. But what else is on those veins? Okay, so we get all the cholesterol out. What else is on those veins? What else is hardening on those veins? Calcium. Yeah, calcium is very hard to keep in solution, isn't it? You put calcium tablet in water, what you're going to get on the bottom of the glass? You're going to get something that's very hard to get out, and you're going to have to take some apple cider vinegar and clean it out. That'll clean your glass out. So what do we want to do to get the accumulation of calcium off the veins? We want to put it back in solution, don't we? We want to put the calcium back in solution because that calcium is usable by the body. See, Americans eat more calcium per capita than anybody on the face of the earth. And we have more calcium deficiencies than anybody on the face of the earth. Does it help to give them a calcium tablet? Not on your life. You're complicating the problem. You're making it worse. Okay? You want to use the calcium that's already in there. There's so much calcium. People have osteoporosis, and at the same time they've got bone spurs, kidney stones, and hardening of the arteries from calcium being deposited in there. So they got all this calcium in there, and they still have osteoporosis. What's the problem? They can't utilize their calcium. So we want to get that calcium to be utilized. Why can't they utilize their calcium? If Americans are taking so much calcium in their body, why? When you refine foods, the calcium very seldom is refined out. So you can refine something right down to a white bread. You can eat white bread, you know, and have you seen this commercial on TV where they look like little junior high school kids or middle-aged kids, middle school kids, you know, and they're slamming their lockers and stuff, and they're going, wheat bread, you know, I'd rather have my shorts pulled up, you know, and I'd rather scratch my fingernails on a blackboard than eat wheat bread, you know. And so then the advertising comes up, you know, white Olympic bread, right? All the nutriments of wheat without the taste. Talk about propaganda. You know, that's one of the worst pieces of propaganda I've seen ever in my life. And it's effective because people that have been switching to wheat bread and not really liking it are going, see, I don't have to do that, and then they come back. You know, and they know what they're doing. They're very clever at that. But anyway, you take out 21 nutriments that we know of and put 8 back in, 8 plus fiber, and have you got the same thing? No. The calcium never does come out of the white bread. You can take that white bread down to its whitest, purest form, and you'll still have calcium in there. So calcium isn't refined out of Americans' diet. So there's plenty of calcium. But what's refined out? Zinc, magnesium, manganese, all these trace elements, fibers. But if you put fiber back in, there's still other things. Silicon, boron. Look at all these things that are refined out, and they would never think of putting them back in because they haven't done any studies in them showing that they have any effect whatsoever. But let's just look at silicon. Okay, you refine silicon out when you make white bread. Okay, and all these other products that we eat. You refine that out. Now, they've done studies in hospital wards with broken bones and showed that patients with high blood calcium levels and low silicon levels, their bones don't heal. But patients with low blood calcium levels and high silicon levels, their bones heal very fast. Now, silica doesn't make bones. Calcium does, doesn't it? So what's the connection here? Well, what I see here is if the blood calcium level is high, that means it's in the blood. It's not in the cells. And to transfer it from the blood to the cells, you need silicon there as a catalyst to get it in. But it isn't just silicon. They've done these, and there's a, you go to the library and look up the relationship between calcium and silicon, you can see all these studies that are done on it. But they've been done on magnesium and all these other things too, okay? And so to take a calcium supplement that has magnesium and vitamin D in it, is that going to do it? No, you're still going to have the problem. Even if you put silicon in, is that going to do it? No. What does the calc T have in it? It has silicon for sure, but it has a lot of other trace elements too. And all these other trace elements are important for utilizing calcium. So the trace elements combine with the calcium, and then it can be used. Calcium cannot be used by itself. So if you flood the body with the calc T and all these trace elements, what are you going to do? You're going to start lifting the calcium out of the body. It's going to start combining with these trace elements and be utilized. And so the best way to get the calcium out of the venous structure is with the calc T. And the calc T works so much faster if you combine it with apple cider vinegar. Boy, talk about it. That's like a roto-rooter. You take that particular formula with the apple cider vinegar, and it just starts taking it out. We had a couple of cases where they had bone spurs on their feet. Okay, that's just calcium deposits. And so we had them soak in the calc T. And within, was it 3-4 weeks, those spurs were off. They'd had these spurs for a long time. Those spurs are off. They didn't have to be surgically removed. You don't have to surgically take stones out of the gallbladder. You don't have to surgically take stones out of the kidneys. How do you get rid of them? You take the calc T, you take apple cider vinegar, you do all these other things, and you're not going to have a problem. See? So let's use what we already got in us. We're using calcium. We can use it. It's there. You know, we're never going to run deficient of calcium. All we need to do is get it out of the deposits, stop it from depositing. So the calc T is one of Dr. Christopher's most important formulas. And we went for so many years thinking, what did he come up with calc T for? He had BF and C. You know, because we've been recommending calc T for people with bone problems, and we're going, why? We got BF and C. Well, BF and C works great, but it doesn't have the silicon in there in such high quantities. The horsetail and the oat straw in that calc T are just chock full. 50% of the trace minerals are silicon in that formula. Okay. So, how did we ever get on the subject? Oh yeah, we talked about blood pressure, you know, and what you did for blood pressure, and we started off that with phenyl B, right? Okay. Other conditions. Say, say you have somebody come in to you and say, I'm just all stressed out, I don't know what I'm going to do. What do you do? What do you, pardon? Okay, give me that keychain back. you give them phenyl B. You give them barberry LG. You cleanse their system, okay? You start cleansing their system out, and then you give them the Nervine. Then you give them the Nervine. The Relaxes, the Nervine, exactly. And that's the secondary thing that we give them. But first of all, we want to cleanse them, you know? And maybe it's not just nerves. Maybe it's PMS, you know? So you got to say, okay, you're like this. You're like this all the time? No, I'm only like this once a month, you know? Then you go, well, then maybe we look at some other things. And so if it's PMS, then what do you give them? Phenyl B, exactly. Okay, so you give them phenyl B. We've seen a lot of young ladies clear up just by cleaning their bowels out. You know, they have a lot of cramps and bloating and stuff, you know. If you cleanse their bowels out, so all of a sudden they're feeling better. And if that doesn't quite do it, then of course you give them the liver formula and you cleanse them out. But specifically, for the female organs, we give them the Nufam. Yeah, and I've seen that Nufam work fantastically. We gave it this one gal, and she was like 18 years old and had, I think, 3 periods in her life. We put her on the Nufam, and within 2 months, she was regular and then didn't have a problem from then on. I think we need to move right along here. I'd like to kind of cover all the formulas Dr. Christopher left with you, so we'll just kind of cover them quickly now. We've kind of spent a lot of time on certain ones, and we'll just kind of move right through. We had talked about, you know, somebody came in just, you know, and we said, well, we'd do the Nervine, or we'd do the Nufam. And first of all, we cleanse them too, and that tends to help. It may be their adrenal glands are shot. You know, maybe they're just one of those types that just overstressed with their adrenals. And so, Dr. Christopher's Adrenatone. would be great. Give them the adrenal formula. And it might be that you ask them specifically, okay, you're stressed when? And then you find out, well, it's just certain times of the day. Then you could probably relate it to a blood sugar problem. And then we go back to that routine that we spent a long time on blood sugar conditions, right? Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of reasons why someone could be all stressed out. And it might be that they're just constipated. It might be just one thing. It might just be constipation. A lot of people come and say, I have headaches. What do I take? What do you think I tell them? Thenol B. Yeah. Especially if it's a headache right on top. Okay, those headaches almost certainly are a bowel condition. And you clean out the bowel and they don't have headaches anymore there. The headaches back here, the bowel formula is probably not going to be enough because you got tension involved too. And so if the headaches back here, then besides the bowel formula and the liver formula and the red clover combination, then we'd also want to take the relaxes and the calc T and get some relief that way too. If the headache's here, all right, then it's most likely, especially if it's a little lower right there, but in this area right here, you're going to want to clean their sinuses out too. So we already went through the sinus routine with the head routine. So you just go back to that. And you'd use the Sensei and the SHA, and for a headache, yeah, that's exactly what you use. And they work very well. And they have just general, let's say they just have general pain in their bodies. Let's say their joint, and you say, no pain is really general. If you talk about it, it tends to be a little more specific. So let's say they have pain in their joints. What do we look at? Someone comes in and they can hardly walk, they've got pain in their joints. What are we going to look at? Thenol B, barberry algae, junipars, red clover combination, and BF and C. BF and C is not a pain reliever. But why does it work? Remember this little game we played with Dave? I think that's exactly why it works. You're feeding the body what it needs, and it says, okay, you're going in the right direction, I'll release some of the pain. And so I think that's exactly why it works. Because you're actually improving the situation. You're giving the body what it needs to repair itself. And by giving it the food it needs to repair itself, it's going to release the pain. As far as pain is concerned, we've had people in the most severe pain from advanced cancer. And we've been able to give them some relief, not because we've got better pain relievers. I mean, morphine will kill the pain until your body doesn't have any more endorphins left, and then they have to give more, you have to give more, and pretty soon, what's the side effect of morphine? You just lose it mentally, don't you? So, you don't have control mentally, and you still have the pain. You get to that point in advanced cancer where you've got both. You've got the disorientation, and you've got the advanced pain. So, we would then give the things that will start feeding the body to reduce that pain. Anyway, we went in the hospital, and the doctors had already written this gal off. Said she's got 6-8 hours. And I said, how do you know that? They said, because her kidneys stopped functioning. I said, oh, did you give her a diuretic? And they go, you peon, of course we did. I said, oh, okay, it didn't work? No. And so I said, all right. So I left and went to the herb shop and picked up some of the same herbs that are in the junipars formula in a liquid form. And I came in and nobody was looking, and I dropped a couple of dropper full in her mouth. Kidney started up within about 15-20 minutes. And she didn't die in 8 hours, even though maybe it was cruel to save her because she had these bed sores you couldn't believe from being in the hospital. And I think from the overdose of morphine that was coming out of the bed sores. And but the family was able to take her, get her released from the hospital, take her home, and used slippery elm to help clear up the bed sores, and got her into a whole position, and she was off the morphine and still not in a lot of pain because they were giving her the nourishing herbs that she needed to rebuild. And so the body recognized that and decreased the pain signals, and then she died. But she died with dignity. She died with her family, instead of hooked up to a machine with no dignity at all. And so these herbs are powerful pain relievers only in the sense that they feed the body properly. And And that's how you get pain relief from herbs and from food. We talked about the BPE formula, how it helps increase the circulation, but you don't want to use it by itself. You want to use it with all the other herbs. It's a whole program. The Dr. Christopher herbs are tonics. We talked about his rest-free formula to help gently cleanse mucus out of the system, and you don't use it by itself, do you? You use it with his whole program, his whole cleansing routine. We talked about the Count T formula, how it has all those trace minerals necessary to catalyze the calcium and utilize it. So it isn't that the Count T is high in calcium, it's not. It's because it's got all the other trace elements in it and can help the calcium that's already in your body that can't be utilized because you ate all the refined foods. Chemical imbalance theory. I think we kind of showed you that that doesn't really hold a lot of water. It's there, people do get chemically imbalanced, but you don't solve the problem by trying to balance the chemicals. And we talked about steroids. Now, so if someone's having hormonal problems, do we just give them hormones? Shouldn't we just give them the Change Yeast formula? It's got hormones in it, doesn't it? No, it doesn't have hormones in it. The difference between vitamin A and beta-carotene is that the beta-carotene's in the food. You take the beta-carotene into your system, your body converts it to vitamin A. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the thing that the Change Yeast formula has in it. It doesn't have hormones in it. It has precursors to hormones. If that weren't the case, then you could take wild yam and prevent having babies. Contraceptive birth control pills are made from Mexican wild yam. Mexican wild yam will not prevent a pregnancy. Birth control pills will. What's the difference? They chemically altered the precursors in the wild yam to make hormones. And that's how they do it. Well, if you take wild yam, you're not going to prevent a baby. You know? You're not taking hormones, are you? But when you take these precursors to hormones in, then your body takes and chemically alters these precursors and makes a hormone. Just like it makes the vitamin A, it also makes hormones. And so if they're having a hormone problem, and that's what they could have, if they come in, it could be a hormone problem. If they're depressed, it could be a hormone problem. If they have osteoporosis, it could be a hormone problem because hormones have a role in utilizing calcium. They could have a lot of problems could be hormone. And so one of the first things we give someone that has osteoporosis, we give them the Change Yeast formula, along with the other things, the Panel B and all those things. We give them the Change Yeast to build up their hormones. Now, when the body's involved in making the hormones, it's not like this. Here's my level, and you give the hormones, and it's down here. When you do Change Yeast, it doesn't work that way because the body's involved in making it. So you're here, and the body has more ingredients to make it with, and says, maybe I should be up here. I've got the building blocks to do it, and it does. See how safe herbs are? They're not. You don't take hormones when you take herbs. You take the precursors, and then the body makes them. And so then we have women say, well, I had a hysterectomy. Well, that makes it more difficult, but look at this. When a woman makes too much estrogen naturally, what happens? Can you get cancer from your own estrogen? Yeah, you can. Doctors don't believe it because they go, why would the body make it if this happens? But you can get cancer from your body making too much estrogen. But what's the safety valve there? What's the safety valve for any toxins? The liver. Where is it detoxified at? It's in the liver. The body, the liver will take excessive amounts of estrogen, turn it into estriol, a milder form of the hormone, and then that'll be put into the bile, and out the bowel it goes. If you put estrogen into the bowel, you will eat the tissue away. That's how strong estrogen is. It's only supposed to be where it's supposed to be. You put it into bowel tissue, and you destroy your bowel. So the liver will then not make bile if it can't convert that estrogen into estriol. Okay? It's not going to put something harmful into the... And so if the liver can't detoxify, it's not going to make bile, right? So we need to tone the liver. So if someone's having hormonal problems, we give them Phenol B and Barberry LG because that's where it's converted. So if you don't have the female organs and you take Change Yeast into your system, what's going to happen to it? It's just not going to be used? No, the liver's going to take the raw ingredients in the changees, the precursors, and make estriol out of them, okay? And that estriol has other functions besides saving the bowel. Estriol acts like estrogen and can combine to stop osteoporosis. It can stop the mood fluctuations and the night sweats, the hot flashes. It can stop all that, okay? And in fact, estriol, if you have estriol in your system, it can get into breast tissue and block estrogen from getting in. And so the herbs are actually converted to estriol, not to estrogen, but estriol. So you don't need the female organs for the changes to work. I've had so many women say, well, I don't have any female organs. How's that going to help me? It's going to help, okay? So, we talked about the nerve formula, and that's another thing. So many people with depression today, what do we want to give them? Phenol B, we want to give them, we want to cleanse their system out. Give them liver, herbs, all those things, and we also want to give them the changees. I don't care whether it's male or female, if they're having depression problems, I want to get them on the changees. I want to get them on the relaxes, and I want to get them on the Calc T. Okay? All the building blocks they need to take care of the depression. And we can give them some specifics, some herbs that have been used specifically for depression, like St. John's wort. That'd be one that we want to specifically give them. If the female organs don't seem to be functioning quite right, okay, we don't want to go in and chemically alter them, but we want to feed them the way they need to be fed. And the food that we would give them is the FemMed formula. And that'll help with any infection, and it'll help with regulation, and it's a good regulator. We're going through these real fast, but we're just out of time. Any glandular problem, the first herb that I look at is mullein. And so we got that combination Dr. Christopher put together of mullein and lobelia. And it works well. I don't care whether it's a thyroid problem, a thymus problem, a pancreas problem, what have you, mullein works well. And he's got mullein in his pancreas formula. He's got it in his glandular formulas, and it works very well. So we go to the glandular formula, which is the mullein lobelia. You can take the mullein lobelia and you can make a tea out of it, dip cotton cloth in it, and wrap it around the neck. You know, and it's going to get there with the thyroid where you need. You know, use a cotton dicky. You know, dip it in the tea, put it on. If someone has swollen testicles, you can take the mullein lobelia, take cotton briefs, soak it in that, pull it on, and put maybe a swimsuit over that, and let them wear that around for a while. Okay, you get that right up against the glands, and it works well. The skin takes these herbs right in. The skin's a barrier, and it'll keep toxins out. And it has a flora on it that'll keep viruses and bacteria out. But if you put just an herbal tea on there, it takes it right in. And you know, that's one of the ways you can get around a doctor in a hospital. You know, they won't let you give them herbal teas and things, but you say, can we take some herbal teas and put it on their skin? And they go, that won't do anything. Sure, go ahead. You can get it right in. Herbal tea enemas, boy, you get it right in. Just talking to someone the other day whose son was having a real bad asthma attack, and gave him a Brigham tea enema. Stopped it right away. The kid slept all night. Worked real good. So you can do it. If you can't get it down this way, get it through another way. And the body wants those herbs, and it'll take them and use them. The SHA formula, okay, clearing out the sinuses. But do we only take the SHA? No, we want to get the truck that's jackknifed on the freeway out of there. So we do the phenol B and the barberry algae too, don't we? Along with the SHA. Here's one we haven't talked about, but doggone, we've had probably more success with this particular formula than any of the ones we have. We got testimonials upon testimonials upon testimonials of the Herbal Eyebright formula. So, if someone has problems with their eyes, what do we give them? Phenol B! Ah, that guy's got it. Okay, we give them phenol B. We give them barberry algae. We give them junipars. We give them red clover combination. And we give them the Herbal Eyebright. But does it do to give them Herbal Eyebright if their sinuses are clogged up? I had this gal call me on the phone, and she goes, I've been using the Eyebright formula for a year now, and I haven't got any results. I said, well, why don't we work on your sinuses? She said, I haven't got anything wrong with my sinuses. And I said, well, you probably don't, but then I explained to her about the eustachian tubes and stuff, and then she said she'd work on her sinuses, but she wasn't going to work on her sinuses because she didn't have a sinus problem. Not hardly. And so we find out if they want the eye formula to work, we got to get that blockage cleared out too, don't we? So we do that too. So we got to look at the whole body as a system. Okay. I call this the Oprah principle. What happens if an Oprah comes in? Oprah Win, you know, she comes in and she's all ballooned out. She says, you know, I've tried diet things before, you know, and she did. Boy, she just slimmed right down. She forced her body into a slim condition, and she blimped right back out again. Why? Because she didn't follow the Dr. Christopher program. Okay, and we've got the best program for weight loss. You send them down the store and get them Herbal Slim. Ha 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 ha. You know, you give them the pep. Ha 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 ha. You know, those things are effective only because they provide stimuli artificially, and when the stimuli is gone, then the condition comes back, doesn't it? And so, what do we do for them? What do we give the Oprah people when they come in? Phenol B. Phenol B. You're right. And we give them the barberry LG and the red clover combination, and we could give them the Herbal Slim, the is that what it's called? SKC, whatever. CSK. I knew it was something initials like that. But yeah, we give them that. But boy, don't ever give anybody a skinny combination. Don't ever give them a skinny combination. Don't ever give them a weight loss combination and think that's going to help them. They're just going to say herbs don't work. So don't sell them anything if that's all they want to get. If they come in and say, I want this, you know, to lose weight, and if they don't want, and you talk to them about it and they don't want to get the other thing, say, you can't have it. We're not going to sell you that product. You want it, you go buy it someplace else. You don't get our product. Okay? Because they got to do the whole program. And when they do the whole program of cleansing and then the right foods going in, if they stop those bad foods from going in and do the right foods, doesn't matter how much they eat. They don't have to put themselves on a diet. They don't have to get a journal out and say, well, I can only eat this much now and this much. I can eat pizza and everything I want, but I can only eat this much pizza, you know. Yeah, they can have pizza on that diet, you know, this much. Hey, if you're eating natural, wholesome foods, we don't care how much you eat. Stuff yourself silly. We don't care. If you start cleansing your body the way it's supposed to cleanse and eating the fibrous, rich foods and wholesome foods that you're supposed to, hey, you're going to lose weight. You'll lose it faster if you decrease the amount of food you're taking in, but you can still be satisfied. You can still take all that food in, and you'll still lose weight. You'll lose weight on this program. You will. And if you're a skinny little mini skinny, you're going to gain weight on this program. Isn't that neat? So many of Dr. Christopher's formulas work both ways. If you've got high blood pressure, it'll bring it down. If you have low pressure, it'll bring it up. A lot of these formulas, you know, I have my favorites, and then I have the ones that I don't even think about. But the, what's that, INF formula? You got the INF formula? I hardly ever think about that one. But we've got one customer that comes in here and buys it by the case. And she gives it to her family every day during the winter to prevent problems from happening, because it's a good food for the immune system, for the whole body. And so I haven't ever thought of it, because of the herbs that are in it, as a great infection formula. But maybe Dr. Christopher didn't put it together as a infection formula to get rid of infection. He put it together as an infection formula to keep you from getting infection. And we talked about the Juniper's formula. No diuretic on the market works better than an herbal diuretic. Herbs work better in their diuretic form and any other form. In their tonic form, of course, but just in their action, herbal diuretics work better. And sometimes maybe it's not that at all. I remember one of my associates had a condition where they had this little girl. She was like 5 years old, and she was just swelling up, and you couldn't even see her eyes anymore. She was just so swollen. You know, and they gave her all these diuretics, and it didn't work. And so they came to him, and he said, well, yeah, sure, we'll just give her an herbal diuretic. He gave her an herbal diuretic, and didn't help. And she still couldn't void her urine. And boy, she was just bloating up, and the doctors were going to do was just going to start cutting to relieve the pressure. They're going to start cutting to relieve the pressure. And so Cayenne looked at it, and he tried to talk to the little girl, and the little girl was like this. No, no, no. He says, boy, she's uptight. Uptight, uptight. So he didn't give her an herbal diuretic. He gave her lobelia. And all of a sudden she ran in and voided her urine. And then she didn't have a problem, and all the swelling came out. She was just a very tight individual, and you gave her something to relax that out. One of the best relaxants, lobelia. You guys are lucky that you've got so many things to draw from. A lot of companies won't even carry lobelia. Lobelia is a great, great, great herb. Barberry algae. We haven't talked about that formula yet, have we? Not hardly. Fennel B. We haven't talked about that formula. We have. Okay. Pink tea, we talked about that formula, so I don't think we need to say any more about that. Only know that it doesn't get used by itself. If somebody comes in with a blood sugar problem, you don't just give them pink tea. You give them the whole schmo. You give them the pink tea, the liver formula, the barberry algae, the adrenal formula, and you give them the bowel formula, and you do the whole thing. You clean them out. Red clover combination, it works fantastically. It cleanses the blood, and that's exactly what's needed. He's got a neat little formula that you hardly think about, but you know, one of my associates down in California in Riverside uses it on mentally retarded kids. His MEM formula. Is it MEM? Yeah, his MEM formula. He's been having real good success giving it to mentally retarded kids. Okay, because it's the building blocks they need. I see so many retarded kids in the area going down the street with their Coca-Cola. Is that going to help their situation? Not at all. No. And we had a wonderful experience with mental retardation. This woman came to us at our school, and she brought her newborn. This is brand new. This was in August. Brought her newborn in, and the baby was definitely Down syndrome, had those mongoloid features. And I knew that Down syndrome is genetic. You know, it's because the genetics are off, and I didn't think there was anything you could do for it. And she says, Dr. Christopher, can you do something for this? And my dad goes, sure. And I'm going, Dad, this is genetic. You know, well, you know, he didn't let those negativities that I had, you know, influence him. And he put her on a program. He put her on the Incurables program, not the baby. He didn't make the baby do all this stuff, you know, and give all these herbs to the baby and the juice. The mother was nursing. So he put the mother on the Incurables program. There's nothing wrong with the mother, but he put the mother on the Incurables program. All she did was nursed. She came back with the baby in December, and the employees at the business, you know, looked at this baby, and they didn't know what was going on here. And they looked at the baby, and it was so cute. There was no sign of Down syndrome as far as the mongoloid features are concerned. In what, August, September, October, November, December? 5 months. Physically, the baby changed. Okay? The baby still had Down syndrome. If you looked at the chromosomes, it still had Down syndrome. But it changed. If you see these kids with the Coke, you know, take it away from them. Or at least talk to their parents, because they can improve. You know, they may not get over the problem, but they can improve. There's always improvement. Dr. Christopher's AR1 formula works great. And that's one that you can almost think of as a pain reliever, but it doesn't work that way, but it does. It relieves pain really good for arthritis. His kelp combination, that's a nice formula, but I wouldn't give it to someone that has hyperthyroid problems. You know, a low thyroid problem, yeah, I'd give it to them. It worked really well, but not hyper. And he's got a great little formula, garlic and rosehip formula. When it's wintertime, and winter formula is a good name for it, but when it's wintertime, you don't see the sun very often. And one of the few herbs that has vitamin D in it is in that formula, watercress. It's high in vitamin D. And Dr. Christopher knew what he was doing when he put formulas together. One thing you have to realize about Dr. Christopher formulas is they're tonics. And so why do you think, you know, a lot of people say, hey, they all have the same dosage on them. Well, that's because they're all tonics. A tonic dose is 2 capsules, 3 times a day, over a long period of time. If someone has a chronic condition, you want to give them a tonic dose. If they've had a problem for a long time, you're not going to get rid of it right away. So you want to give them a tonic dose. If they have an acute condition where they've got it today but they didn't have it yesterday, then you want to give them a medicinal dose. All right? So, for example, the rest-free. If they've got a chronic condition, 2 capsules 3 times a day over a long period of time, you're going to clear it up. If they didn't have that condition yesterday, they got it today, you better get rid of it tomorrow. On acute conditions, you should be able to get rid of acute conditions in 2 or 3 days, max. Okay? So if they have an acute condition, you increase the dosage to 2 capsules every hour or every half hour. See? With all the formulas except Phenol B. You give them 2 capsules of Phenol B every hour, and you got a problem. Because most constipation problems are chronic. Okay? So you don't give them 2 capsules every hour. You give them 4 capsules 3 times a day, 6 capsules 3 times a day, 7 capsules 3 times a day, 10 capsules 3 times a day, 20 capsules 3 times a day, whatever it takes to blast them loose. And we have had people on 40 capsules a day, barely moving their bowels. One of the reasons that I've tried to put this all into perspective, into an easy format to use, is because as I was going through the first part of my marriage, when the kids got sick, we just give Dad a call. And Dr. Christopher was there for us all the time, and we give him a call and say, this is what the problem is, and he'd tell us exactly what to do. And then I remember it was just shortly after he died, one of the kids got sick, and I went to pick up the phone to call Dad, and he wasn't there. And so we immediately then went to his books. And one of the first ones we went to was Herbal Home Healthcare. And just about everything that happens in our family, we found right there in Herbal Home Healthcare. And all these things he'd been telling us that just didn't register, we looked it up, and they were all there in his book. And so we referred to that, and we used that book a lot. We used that book so much in the first part of our marriage. Now we don't use it so much because, we've gone over it and over it and over it again. But that's what we did. In fact, it's interesting. The more and more I get into herbology, the more my library grows, and boy, have I got a library. But and I start getting into all these other books and all these other philosophies and things. And I remember one time, it's real interesting, poke doesn't grow in our area. And so one of my students from the School of Natural Healing, one of my students back in Maine, I believe it was, sent me some poke. And it was great. I'd never seen fresh poke before, and he sent me this fresh poke root. And I did it specifically for a breast cancer case that I was working with. And so anyway, I got the fresh poke in, I chopped it up and grated it on the carrot grater and everything, and get it ready for a poultice. And I realized that, hey, I've never seen poke before, I've never tasted poke before, so I decided to taste it. So there was a chip of poke that I'd chipped off, and I ate that. Well, it had an acrid taste, but it didn't really taste that bad. I thought, that's not so bad. For such a powerful herb, that's not so bad. And I got going along, working on my poultice some more, and I took another chip. And I haven't quite got the taste down. I did that 3 times. Chips of poke, fresh poke. Man, this isn't a strong herb. I didn't have any reaction to this. So anyway, I took the poultice, I delivered it to the person that had the breast cancer. I went home, had dinner, went to a meeting that night. I'm sitting there in the meeting, and I turned to my wife and I said, that herb that I got in today, poke, I can taste it in my mouth. Isn't that interesting? She goes, yeah. I said, whoa, that herb I got in today, I can taste it all through my whole mouth, and it's like down my esophagus. And all of a sudden it just kind of started spreading, and I started sweating profusely, and I started getting real sick. And I thought, Fawn, I've got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And she says, well, can't you just go in their bathroom? I said, not for what I got to do. And I went rushing out of the house, and it had snowed, and someone had stepped in the snow and put a hole about this deep, and I filled it. Blah, 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 just so on. I said, Fawn, blah, blah, my students poisoned me, blah, blah, And so when there was nothing else left, I kept dry heaving, and so we got in the car and we rushed down to the herb shop, and I went through my library and I was going through all these books. I went through all these books. The last book I looked in was our own, Dr. Christopher's School of Natural Healing. I opened that up and I found poke. It had a perfect description of the plant. It had a perfect description of the root. It had a perfect description of the dried root. It had a perfect description of poke. And I could see that it definitely was poke that was sent to me. And then I read, and it said, a slow action herb, too strong to be used as a medic. I said, yes, that's right. He gave me the antidote. I took chamomile tea, and I was over. And no problem. But isn't it interesting that the last thing you look at is the one that you've had around for so long? You kind of take for granted the things that are there. But these are the greatest herbals. They really are. And Dr. Christopher's School of Natural Healing is not set up like most herbals. Most herbals are allopathic herbals. You look up the condition, and it gives you the page, and then it says this herb and this herb and this herb and this herb for this condition. Well, no, that's not the way it works. And so with his book, he has the conditions in chapters. And so he talks about diaphoretic herbs, which would be for any time that you have a fever. So diaphoretic herbs are all in one chapter. His expectorant herbs for when you have accumulations of mucus in the system. His expectorant herbs are in one chapter. 52 pages on expectorant herbs. And if you don't like the 8 expectorant herbs he talks about, you go to the back of the book and he's got 100 listed as alternatives. This is a great book. It tells you how to prepare the herbs, how to find them, how to store them, how to use them. And he did this clear back in '69. You know? And it doesn't really matter how old an herb book is. Herb information is the same today as it was yesterday, as it will be tomorrow. The basic herb information is good. I've got herbals in my collection from the 1800s, and they're just as valid today as they were back then. As long as the principles are correct, the books are of great use, and they are. Where there would be a difference in today's herbals with the older ones is they would talk more about the chemical breakdown of these herbs. And, you know, that could be useful and could not. It doesn't matter how they're chemically broken down. If you know how to use them, that's what's important. This one is an interesting one. Dr. Christopher's Every Woman's Herbal. I had asked Dad to write a book on women. I said, you know, they have some special conditions that only they have. And I thought he didn't do it. He died, and no book on women. And after he died, about a year after he died, we were going through the files, and there it was, a 100-page manuscript on women that Dad had left us. And so we had Kathy Gigliotti, a local here in the area, that took his 100 pages and made it 200 pages, and it's a great book. And so it's got not only his insight, but from a woman's viewpoint too. So, great book. All of them are. His tape series. You know, a lot of tapes that you get from these authors, you know, it says, you know, Dr. So-and-so talks about this. And it's not Dr. So-and-so at all. It's some professional actor up there giving the words of this person because they're not good speakers. Dr. Christopher's a great speaker. And he just did that off the cuff. Everything he did, he didn't have notes prepared. He taught people right from his heart. And that's what happened with those tapes there. He taught them right from his heart. And so he's got a whole tape series there going through the body system by system, organ by organ, telling you how to cleanse it and how to feed it. And one of our students, the Herbal Preparations, it's part of our course with the School of Natural Healing. And you can buy it separately. Any of the courses you can kind of buy separately. But the Herbal Preparations, very professionally done on exactly how to prepare the herbs. If you're not going to take the full school, well, at least take some of these courses. The Dr. Christopher course for sure, and the books. You know, you don't need the School of Natural Healing to become an herbalist. You don't need it. If you're your own person, if you can motivate yourself, and that's not a problem. You don't need a school to be an herbalist. What a school does is helps you with an outline, a guide for achieving that purpose. And so the School of Natural Healing will help you in your determination. That we do it with study guides. We have books that help with your holistic learning, and then we have the study guides to go with it. Also over here we have even little books. Dr. Christopher's 3-Day Cleanse Program. Just with that, you can clear up so many conditions with people, just with the 3-Day Cleanse Program. And yes, we have it in Spanish. Si hablamos español. And we're going to be translating more into Spanish. And so we're really excited about that. So there's a lot of tools for becoming an herbalist. And I would suggest that everyone be their own doctor, be their own herbalist, be their own holistic herbalist, be their own vitalist. And it's really not that hard. And boy, can you save a lot of money. Hey, it's been great talking to you. I hope you understand the Dr. Christopher formula is better now.
This video and the other materials you have received are just the beginning of your herbal education. The School of Natural Healing offers several courses that will help you to become a master herbalist. Begin with the Herbalist Home Study course and learn from Dr. John Christopher and other masters. Advance to the Master Herbalist level for a more in-depth and complete education. When you have completed both courses, you are a candidate for the certification seminar. For more information on getting started, contact the School of Natural Healing. As a bonus, the purchase price of this kit can be applied towards the purchase of the Herbalist course, saving you $100. Thank you for taking the first step towards becoming a